dislocation of the nucleus into the anterior chamber once you've got your capsulotomy. Dozens of different ways to do this. Also, everybody has a little bit of a different technique that they use. So again, trying to find something that works reliably most of the time when you're first learning is the objective here. And I would just point this out to you, that this cantilever sort of motion, don't forget this is the way the cataract is kind of shaped. It's thicker in the center, and it's if you draw a line through the, from equator to equator, it's actually heavier on the bottom than the top, right? That's the way most cataracts are shaped. So that means if you push on the edge, or if you, oh, my light, there you go. Or if you, let's say I push down right here, or push down on this side, I can get this edge to pop up. Or if I push down here, I can get that edge to pop up. So there's lots of ways to do that, but if you keep that principle in mind, this is where people often get stuck with M6. So they've got their tunnel made, they've got their capsulotomy done, and they're struggling to get the nucleus to come up. Unlike phaco, you're trying to not get your nucleus to come up, right? So you work very hard so that it doesn't do that. In this case, you're trying to get it at least one edge up. So don't forget that you can use different pressure points. I call them pressure points on the nucleus or on the cataract to your advantage to manipulate the nucleus within the capsular bag. But you've got to have an adequate capsulotomy to do that. Of course, anytime you're manipulating in the anterior chamber, in the capsular bag, don't let your instrument go past the equator of the lens, especially when you're first starting, because that can be a dangerous maneuver. You can get yourself into trouble pretty quick with that. Let's see, lifting. So here's just a series. So the anterior capsulotomy is done, and I'm just going to push right here, for example. That's one way to do it, and it causes this edge to come right up, so I can just sweep underneath it, and I get this edge to float towards the tunnel. That keeps it from floating up against the endothelium. I'm going to use this tunnel as an anchor for the nucleus, basically. I want the nucleus to go right into the tunnel out of the capsular bag rather than just floating up into the anterior chamber. So what that does is protects the cornea. Some people will not even open the capsular bag. They just make this single linear cut right across here and then drag the nucleus right into the tunnel out of the capsular bag without even opening the capsular bag. That's another way to do it. That's the hen egg thing, the fish hook thing. That's a nice one too. Let's see. So I try to keep the cystotome from snagging on the capsule. Make sure you turn it. I always start here at 2 o'clock because I'm assuming I'm going to learn something about the status of the cortex, and I don't want to find out about that when I'm way down here and find that the cortex is liquid and it all comes out through the opening, and now I can't get into the capsule anymore, under the capsule. So most of these motions are towards the center of the eye. It's the little sweeping type thing. It's connecting the points together. It's about 30 little cuts. A final pass around, I'm going to rotate, start down and rotate around. You see the shear, there it is right there. It opens right there. So now I can get one of the edges, get this edge to come up, and I can turn it so that it comes right to the tunnel in the next step. So it's not even up into the anterior chamber yet, but now I'm going to bring it into the tunnel. So to do that, I just rotate and a little with hydro. See a little injecting? There it goes right into the tunnel and stop. Now it's caught in the tunnel, so it can't go up against the cornea. So that stabilizes it right there.
Champagne corked.
Champagne corked. That's it. Any observations, David? Things you do? Ideas? Differences?
Sometimes I think of it as a bicycle tire rotation.
Yep.
Getting it, if you ever try to tire on a bike, you have to get one edge and sweep it around, and if you remove it, you do the opposite.
Yep.
This is a bicycle tire removal.
Whatever.
McIntyre used to call it tire iron.
Yeah, the tire iron maneuver. Yeah, but basically, what you're wanting to do is protect the corneal endothelium. Now you're in protecting the cornea mode, right? From the time you've got the capsule open until you're finished, you're in protecting the cornea mode and protecting the posterior capsule. Those two things. And this is the first step to protecting the cornea, is bringing that nucleus up into the tunnel straight away so that it's corked, so the tunnel is corked.
Then are there times that you'll use some hydrodissection to get that initial movement? Or
Yes.
are you successful to manually do it with the needle?
If the nucleus is fairly dense, I'm almost always successful with the cystotome needle itself because it's so dense. And the advantage of that is it doesn't shear the cortex off. So that means cortex, nucleus, and all comes into the tunnel, all in one piece.
Even if you do a capsulotomy, you still do hydrodissection?
Not always, that's what we were just saying. So most of the time I don't do a hydrodissection if it's a dense nucleus.
Okay, because we normally stay away from it. We're afraid that the bag might open.
It's
that's a
certainly
good
much
point.
more of a conservative irrigation
Yeah,
than with
that's a good
a
point.
continuous.
But my reason, beside avoiding that is also I don't want to shear the cortex off the nucleus like you do with phaco. You're trying to do that in phaco. I'm wanting it to stay on because I don't want to have to go and clean a lot of cortex out later. I want it to all be there at once.
I'm lazy.
I'm lazy. That's it. We're both lazy. So here we go. So I use a lens loop now. I've gone back and forth and round, and what I've done, trying everything from the fish hook to Simcoe and visco delivery and all that. And where I currently am is lens loop delivery. I think provides the easiest to learn, most reliable strategy for delivering most any kind of nucleus. So I was just spent the week with Bidya Pant last week. Dr. Bai, you may know him. He's in Nepal. He's a champion for the fishhook technique. And so we talked about this at great length. And basically, I think I convinced him that the fishhook is essentially just a one-sided lens loop because he doesn't actually turn that fishhook up into the nucleus because it tips the nucleus on the side. But he puts it underneath and just very slightly rotates and then slides back, just like you do with a lens loop, exactly like you do with a lens loop. So he finally conceded. We were arm wrestling or thumb wrestling, at the table. And so he finally said, well, if I just cut the side of my lens loop off, it would look just like your fish hook. And he decided that was exactly the same thing. So anyway, there's lots of ways to do this. The point is you have to do something that ensures the nucleus never contacts the endothelium. So this is not about dragging a nucleus out of the eye. That's barbaric. That's not what we're talking about, right? What we're talking about is safely delivering the nucleus like a newborn baby, out of the eye. So that's the difference in attitude here that you have to have.
Simcoe used to teach what would happen in case their instruments did not even ever show up. And he would make out a paperclip.
Oh, is that right?
He would make
A paperclip.
and he would teach people how to make it.
That's awesome. I like doing stuff like that. I've made many an instrument out of paperclip. How cool is that? The paperclip lens loop delivery system, Simcoe's paperclip delivery. Well, if you ever get bored, okay. So, yeah. So I've made paper clips into all sorts of things, but that's one I've never done, so I have to try that. That's a great idea. The lens loop facilitates this delivery so that the nucleus can glide out by pushing down on the inner tunnel wall. Basically, it just creates a hydrodynamic system, that facilitates delivery of the nucleus, which is already plugged into the tunnel. I think it provides improved safety in trauma, zonular cases with zonular instability, partially dislocated cataracts, and so on, hypermature cataracts. Situations that are more difficult, I just like the security of a lens loop that's there, to catch the nucleus, basically, is how it feels to me. But again, lots of ways that you could do this. Here's the edge of the tunnel right here, so I know that the nucleus is in the tunnel already. The lens loop, you can see that, just barely see the outline of it there. So I'm just hugging the back of the nucleus so that now this back edge is popped up, and when I deliver, it's coming out at an angle. And once I get about halfway, a little more than halfway out, you can see that the nucleus is kind of reshaping as it goes through the tunnel a bit. Then I get some of the remaining epinucleus out as a final step, so I have relatively little cortical expression to do. I think this is the demonstration of that. Lots of different shapes of lens loops too. See, the nucleus just now comes into the anterior chamber as it's coming out the tunnel. very little cortex remaining.
So Glenn, you got opposite low rotation with that too.
Yeah, so I wrote that. That's just so I can get the lens loop in the right spot without lifting up against the cornea. I'm rotating it down slightly so that I can slide up the tunnel without pushing, and then get under the nucleus without pushing it back into the eye. Does that make sense? Yeah.